Reddit. What is the worst most embarrassing thing to happen to you involving bodily fluids? I was traveling across Malaysia and ended up on an island off the coast called Shoman, I think. Now, I always like to sample the local cuisine, so you might think you know where this is going. After a local fish dish I have a very dodgy stomach. The only toilets are the hole in the ground type, and I'm not too good with those. In fact, on the second day I am so ill that I begin to hallucinate and scare the living crap, no pun intended, out of the girl I'm traveling with and would have been sleeping with if I could stay out of the toilets for more than 5 minutes at a time. Honestly, I thought I had malaria or something. I saw freaking worms coming out of the walls. Anyway, when I was a kid, if I ever ate boiled eggs I would become heavily constipated. So I reason that if I eat a load of boiled eggs here it should have a similar effect and bung me up. I go to the local restaurant and ask them to boil me a load of eggs. I don't speak the local language so I point at stuff and somehow we sort it out. I didn't do it myself because there was no cooker in our room, just a bed and a mosquito net. So the cook serves up my boiled eggs, but for some freaking reason he's put them in a curry sauce of some kind. WTF. But at this point I'm too ill to argue. I'm losing body mass and look freaking terrible. I eat the eggs. What happened next? Well, this pretty much scarred me for life. The girl I was with has not spoken a word to me since this event, back in 2002. For most of that night I was okay. I farted every now and then but it wasn't too bad. The smell was awful but that was it. And then it happened. I felt a fart building. This was in the early hours of the morning, and I thought I'll let it out slowly do I don't wake her. But no, a gentle fart turns into something wet. I bolt for the toilet but it's too late. I'm freaking spraying liquid crap everywhere, and I can't stop it. I pebble dash the bedroom, the toilet, end up standing in the shower desperately trying to wash this crap away. She is in the bedroom weeping. I'm in the shower crying. It freaking lasted hours. I was about 3 stone lighter when it ended, and it took a whole day to clean that freaking place up. She couldn't even look at me. She took a ferry off the island without even telling me and I ended up traveling alone for a couple more weeks before I went home. Crap happens, I guess. I sneezed a giant ball of snot into some woman's hair who was sitting in front of me at a movie theater. She put her hand on the back of her head, came away with a palm full of snot, and turned around with the most disgusted, pee-off look on her face that you could imagine. I just got up, walked out, and went home, leaving the rest of my friends there. I lived with a roommate that used an entire roll of toilet paper a day, so eventually we started taking our own rolls into the bathroom every time we had to poop, so he didn't use all the toilet paper. Well, I just got done turning my toilet paper into Fapkins one slow Monday and then threw them away. Well, about an hour later my roommate who uses all the toilet paper went in the bathroom. After 5 minutes we just hear him scream frick and then 10 minutes later comes out. The trash can was now empty. Back in my first job out of college I worked a job that required traveling 3 states, and about once a month, one of my bosses would fly into town to ride with me a couple days. Well, one weekend a boss calls me and tells me he is flying into East Texas and I need to pick him up at the airport at 10 AM Monday. I live in West Texas so I drive the night before and spend the night in a hotel. Well, that morning I grab a quick breakfast that I would regret. I pick him up and the rest of the day I just feel off. And that night we spend the night in East Texas after working the area. That night I come down with chills and diarrhea, but I think I am alright to go the next morning. We begin to drive back to West Texas and we get to between Sweetwater and Snyder. Now I doubt very many of you have ever been there, but there is nothing in this area. No trees, no houses, just a lot of flat land, with a major interstate running through it. All of a sudden it hits me that I am sick, very sick. And I have 2 options: crap myself in front of my boss, or pull over and run out into a field that had been disced up and therefore didn't even have any grass coverage. I chose option B. I proceed to crap my brains out in a barren field with a lot of traffic driving by, while my boss sits there in my truck. Once I finish that humiliation I realize I'll lack toilet paper, and I remember from Rob and Big about how Big Black uses his sock occasionally when in such an emergency. So I use my sock, hop back in the truck, and pretty much make it back to my hometown by frog hopping from truck stop to truck stop. I must be one of the few who have actively used a life lesson from MTV. The owner of the company heard the story and decided my Indian name would be Danny One Sock, which I was called the rest of my time with that company. In high school we had a college type modular schedule, so we had free time during the day. During one of the more popular free mods, lots of people were out of class. My girlfriend was sitting on my lap, and when she went to stand up because she had to go to class, the look of pure horror was on all my friends' faces. She was wearing a skirt that day and also conveniently started her period. On my pants, there were blood marks up and down my pants from knee to crotch region. Luckily for her, I was wearing stained Defenders that day and everything washed off in the bathroom. Not really that embarrassing to me, but to the girl I was dating at the time. TLDR. I got super bad before it was cool. Was working at a restaurant. Kid and father come in. Kid has a hot dog. Our hot dogs were not the greatest. Kid asks for a balloon. I bring both the balloon and the hot dog. Excited kid wants to be able to hold both. So the dad ties the balloon to the kid's wrist. Kid eats the hot dog and projectile vomits all over the table, the booth, the floor, and, importantly, the balloon. The dad cuts the balloon off the kid's wrist, takes the kid to the bathroom. While they're doing their thing, the balloon starts drifting, dripping vomit on other tables and nearing a ceiling fan. So I grab the balloon and say, hey, I need to deflate this. So I also grab a fork. Let me pause here to say that my concentration face, when doing a meticulous task, involves a slightly open mouth. I'm a genius, so I grab the skin near the nipple of the vomit balloon between my fingers and try to puncture it with the fork to let the air out slowly. The balloon popped, spraying my agape face with hot dog vomit. The father didn't leave a tip. I was not allowed to go home early that day. TLDR. Vomit balloon. I was also around 13. I was hanging out by myself downtown, waiting for one of my friends to meet me down there. I happened to walk past these two girls. We'll call them Sam and Jess. I had a crush on Jess, so I walked up to them and started talking. It was really hot out that day, so Sam suggests that we go back to her house where there was air conditioning, and wait for my friend there. They both had bikes, and I was on foot. They walked their bikes with me for a bit, and then got on and rode a bit ahead of me. That's when it hit me, this giant urge to fart. Good thing too, because they were not in range for the unleashing of the beast. I let the fart rip, except this wasn't any fart. Oh nay. This was an explosion of diarrhea in my pants. I mean, I could feel it running down my leg and everything. I freaking panicked. I was going to hang out with my crush, for the first time ever, mind you, and I freaking crapped my pants. For some reason, I decided to keep walking to her house, and I figured I'd use the bathroom there to A, assess the damage in my trousers, and B, clean up. We finally get to her place, and I immediately ask to use the bathroom. Jess shows me the bathroom, and I lock the door behind me and sigh a little sigh of relief. Although, that relief was extremely short-lived, as I slid my pants down and saw the horror that was my human excrement all over the inside of my pants, boxers, and even in my socks. I went to go reach for some toilet paper, and the roll was empty. Shit fuck. I scampered around the bathroom with my crap-covered pants around my ankles, waddling like a penguin searching for a roll of toilet paper. At this point, I have already been in the bathroom for a couple minutes, and I know it's going to take a while to clean myself up, and damn it, I wanted to hang out with my crush. I finally found a roll of toilet paper in a cabinet outside of the bathroom, right next to the door. I cleaned up as best as I could, but no dice. I still smelled like fat bastard's sumo wrestling thong in gold member. I needed to make an escape. So what did I do? I put on my crappy pants, opened the bathroom door, and ran. I just freaking booked it out of the house. I went to my best friend's house, who I was originally waiting for, and told him what happened. He laughed, but then gave me a change of clothes and let me shower. I never had the balls to talk to Sam or Jess again. The funny part about these stories is the girl probably always had lower self-esteem after this crap because you didn't tell her WTF was going on and just left. Poor Jess. Haha. For a while my butt hurt whenever I sit down. And to be clear, I only use it for 3 things: sitting, farting, and pooping so no one gets any ideas. Being a guy, I just ignored it and didn't get it checked out. So a few weeks later, I went to take my last final for the spring and wore grey sweatpants. I sat in front of the class and finished while half the people were still there. Upon getting back to my house, my friend told me I was bleeding. I ran to my room and took off my sweatpants and realized the back of them were pretty much covered in a red stain. Then I realized that half of my class must have seen my brownish red butt and assumed the worst. Long story short, I had an infection which led to surgery and I had to deal with an butt that leaked blood and pus for a few weeks. Kill count: 1 pair of sweatpants, approximately 3 pairs of underwear and an butt full of tissue paper and gauze. TLDR, had a man period. Menstruation. I seem to remember reading a story in one of these about some camp counselor riding in a car with 2 girls. Long story short, he shoots jizz all over the dash. Where's that guy? I caught a bad stomach flu when I was based in Turkey. I eventually felt so bad that I went to the base hospital to see what they could do. Turns out I was sicker than I thought. They put me in a patient's gown and they sent me to the lab to take blood. Usually I'm okay with my blood being drawn, but this time seeing the needle go into my arm kicked me into hypnosis mode. Seconds away from hurling, I forcibly tried to get up and go to a trash can to puke in it, jerking the needle appliance out of the lab tech's arm. Blood starting arcing out of the needle still stuck in my arm, and I couldn't get up and across the room in time to make it to the trash can. The blood made me violently throw up. The hard clenching of my abdominal muscles forced me to shoot explosive diarrhea out my butt and pee myself, too. The end result looked like a big, disgusting, stinking Jackson Pollock painting on the lab floor. The lab tech was stunned, and I was led to the room where my blood pressure dropped drastically and I almost died. Made a full recovery after a couple weeks, though. TLDR, I got sick. Projectile vomited, spurted blood, projectile diarrhea, pee all at the same time while standing in a medical lab. You need to name this: projectile vomited, spurted blood, projectile diarrhea, pee all at the same time. Then you go to Urban Dictionary and you add it. Do it now. I had colorectal cancer a few years ago. Part of the treatment was chemotherapy. Every other week they'd put 2 kinds of poison into me. Then they'd hook up a pump that would trickle another poison in over the course of 2 days. For the next 3 or 4 days after that I'd be sick as a dog. On one occasion it was particularly bad. I woke up very sick. Barely made it to the bathroom for a lower intestinal emergency. Then I had to vomit very violently and unexpectedly. Trying to turn around and get everything in the bowl was highly unsuccessful. Poop and puke were spewed from opposite ends and sprayed all over the toilet, floor and walls. I was able to drag myself to the shower and laid on the tile floor there contemplating how much money I was going to lose trying to sell the house as is with a bathroom that would have to be gutted down to the concrete slab. About this time, my wife woke up. It was probably round 2 o'clock in the morning. That bathroom was spotless before she went back to sleep. It was one of the worst nights of my life, but also one that I am most thankful for, as I have the most wonderful wife I could ever imagine. Your wife is a keeper, but you know that already. A couple of years ago I was at a nightclub with my best friend, my boyfriend, and his best friend. Me and my best friend had just come out of the washroom, which was in a separate hallway parallel to the dance floor. While walking through that hallway, a random blonde girl ran past us, and while she was running, she was spewing nasty red vomit out of her mouth. It got all over me and my white shirt. I freaked out and darted to the bathroom where I was greeted by another girl who said, "Ugh, that girl comes here like every weekend and always does that. Seriously, who vomits on people every weekend? She's a nice lady." Right, okay, this just happened last night. I was freaking myself, but because I was menstruating we decided to ride back doors. Everything's feeling pretty good and after we're done he pulls out and I feel a wet sounding fart and burst of air come out. We both laughed it off and he went to the bathroom to clean himself off. I waited in bed keeping my butthole squeezed as tightly as possible and I heard him kind of scream and then laugh. During our steamy time my tampon came out and I leaked all over his dong and balls. But wait, there's more. So he returns and I get up to clean myself off as well. I search for my panties under the covers and find a wet object. Aha, there's the errant tampon. I grab it so I can throw it away. In the bathroom I turn on the light and I look at the tampon, only it isn't a tampon. Remember that wet fart with the burst of air? Yeah, that wasn't air that burst out. It's a tampon shaped piece of crap. I'm disgusted and quickly dispose of it and clean up in the shower. But where did that tampon go? I return to bed and start searching for it. I'm having a hard time finding it though. I even have my so get up and help me look for it, but to no avail. Then I hear our dog making licking and smacking noises. Yes, that's right. She had gotten a hold of the tampon and was eating it. I got it away from her and disposed of it, then changed the sheets. I told my so I wanted to change the sheets because of bloodstains. No need for him to be aware of my projectile turd. TL. Doctor. Rode back doors with my so while on my period. Lost my tampon during the act, which caused me to bleed all over his genitals. Farted when we were done, which was actually a projectile turd. My dog ate the bloody tampon. Had to change the sheets. God dang. Okay, ants infested our house. Had to take a huge crap. Had an chubby. Worst combo. Crouched over the toilet, like a caveman or a Japanese, so the ants wouldn't crawl up my butt. Went to take a crap. Then I pee all over the wall across from me. Then I sat down and ants crawled on me. There was a time that I went to Six Flags and I couldn't keep anything in my body. One of my friends had me get on a roller coaster, and when we started to get cranked up the first hill I had the urge to take a crap. This roller coaster we were on was one of the Minutes attractions with a huge loop. Mind you, the car was one of the ones that your feet dangle. So we went down the first drop and I clenched my butt cheeks as hard as I could, but the G-force going into the loop was too unbearable. I crap mid-loop, spraying poop everywhere. I couldn't believe what had happened. I looked back, I had crap on about 15 people. When leaving the ride I booked it out of there with my friend, and on our way out we looked at the pictures to see everyone covered in crap, screaming with horrified looks on their face. TL. DR. Crap while on a roller coaster loop. Sprayed poop on everyone. Man, you should have bought a copy of that pic. Souvenir. I don't think this will get seen since it's a little late, but here we go. I am a paramedic, and I'm subjected to vomit and other body fluids every day. I have lots of stories. Here's one of the better stories. We went on a call for a kid who took GHB. I believe that's what it was, and was in Hulk mode. When we got there, he was throwing tables, chairs, punching holes in walls and destroying everything he could get his hands on. After a scuffle we finally got him in the ambulance and on our way. I was at the head ventilating him because he had a seizure and wasn't breathing so well. The way I was sitting in the seat made my pants rise up above the top of my boots and left the opening exposed. He ended up vomiting, and it went down my leg into my boots. So now I'm sitting there, with shoes full of vomit and pants covered. Good news was before he took the GHB he had a blue Slurpee from Richdale and it smelled not so bad. When we got to the hospital it was like walking with shoes filled with water. Squish, 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 squish. It was pretty gross, but smelt alright. I guess I forget what it was he was on. For some reason GHB stuck in my head. I know it wasn't PCP, but I guess I'm wrong about the GHB. I'll try to remember what it was. I was getting a BJ from my girlfriend, current. She doesn't read it, so it's okay, I hope. Anyways, let me preface this by saying my previous girlfriend swallowed. She wouldn't hesitate and always let me finish. My current girlfriend, not a huge fan of the sperm. She, of course, decided not telling me was the best course of action. She was going to town on me. Doing great, I might add, when that feeling hit. You know that feeling when you're just about to come. I moan and tell her that I'm about to come. She takes it as a cue to jump up and move 6 feet to the right. I'm shocked, but the cannon was already firing. The trajectory of my dong was aimed backwards. My cum shot backwards and the first and biggest load hit my face. The second shot off and hit my chin. I then finished like a crappy cum fountain. Gave myself a facial. Lovely. I'm taking a nap at my boyfriend's house. I dream that I'm taking a glorious, superiorly pressure relieving pee. Wake up to find myself covered in my own pee. Back when I was probably 16 or 17, a bunch of my friends and I were getting drunk at a house party for New Year's. One of my friends had eaten an entire large pizza to himself that night, then drank a 26 of vodka. Yeah, he barfed. The thing is, he had the presence of mind to understand he was about to blow, and decided that the best course of action was to simply cover his mouth in some kind of vain attempt to dam the ensuing tsunami of vomit. Puke sprayed out from between all of his fingers in what I would describe as a shotgun effect. Everyone in the entire room got at least a pellet from his puke buckshot on them. It was glorious. It's an acquired talent, but the one time I threw up from drinking in the past 5 years, I managed to fill 3 empty beer cans and not a drop spilled anywhere else. If it makes you feel better, I guarantee you that's not going to be the only time something like that happens to her. It might not have even been the first. Because she's Asian. I get it. I've been to a few ultrasounds with my wife when she was pregnant. The lube was always cold and took about 3 seconds to apply. I think you were physically shamed. Had a testicular cyst when I was 18 and the lube for the ultrasound was definitely warm. I am gay and the nurse remains the only woman to have touched my balls in my adult life. Much longer than 3 seconds. Not was gay. And no, there was definitely no boner. First time going down on a guy. All is going well until he was ready to CM. He hit too far back in my mouth, causing some of the CM to go up my nose and into my sinuses. It was not pleasant feeling. I did finish him off and swallow like a boss though. I'm pretty sure that's called a Chinese dragon. Sitting on a bus with a few of my friends, and one of them who had been out the night before and was looking rather queasy had the biggest sneeze ever. I'm talking about it spraying in the air kinda stuff, and I felt some stuff go on my face. So I started to wipe it off, already thinking it was pretty disgusting, when I look at him, huddled over with a pool of vomit in his hands dripping onto the floor. At which point all of us start laughing because he managed to get my face and literally no one else's, out of a group of about 8. Never have I been so amused by something so innately disgusting before. TLDR. Friend sneezed and vomited at the same time, managed to get me on my face. I felt a sharp pain in my groin area while playing pool at the bar. I went home, ran to the bathroom, and pulled down my pants. Staring back at me is the biggest infected hair pimple I've ever seen in my pubes. I sit on the toilet seat and lean over to pop it. I squeeze and before I can react, what must have been a tablespoon of pubic pimple pus hits me square in the mouth. Luckily, my mouth was already closed, and I avoided a major growth out. It looked like someone had shot me in the face with a squirt gun, filled with pus. Still disgusting, nonetheless. TLDR. I popped a pubic pimple, and it punched me in the kisser. Say it 5 times, fast. Heavy makeout session with girlfriend at the time. We are sitting on a couch and kissing while she's jerking me off. I tell her that I am going to CM. She quickens the pace. I explode and while I am moaning I end up squirting some in my mouth. She kept kissing me though. Yeah, same here, except mine involved me masturbating myself, and then after 12 seconds thinking to myself OMG I'm going to CM before, you know, the mouth thing. I promptly kissed my pillow girlfriend Qatar. Not human bodily fluids, but I used to work as a meat cutter and on my last day on the job went to throw an old bag of fat blood in the garbage and it wasn't tied good enough. The bag exploded as it hit the back of the compactor. The blood drenched my nice white overcoat, my hair and was all over my face. Not embarrassing since no one else was present, but anyway, I was messing around online, thinking of taking a nap, when I came across something, probably just some girl in a bikini or something, that I wasn't looking for but there it was. I hadn't planned on fapping, but now I was a little turned on so I just thought, frick it, now I have to just so I'll stop thinking about fricking. I finished to the first P clip I clicked on, not very enthusiastically, just sort of getting it out of the way, just to get it done with, not an especially powerful orgasm. I cleaned myself up, rolled over, went to sleep. Now the thing about ejaculate is that it's always somewhat viscous even while hot, and like most things it is more dense once it cools down. Anyway, a few hours later I wake up and have to pee. I walk to the bathroom, unzip, start to release, but just as the urine gets to the tip I feel a pain. Not quite agonizing, but sharp and very uncomfortable. It gets more intense for a few seconds until urine comes shooting out all over the back of the seat. Apparently I hadn't orgasmed hard enough to get everything out. and a small amount of ejaculate had congealed in the tip of my urethra, creating a dam that blocked the wall of urine. The urine had to build up much more pressure than usual before it burst the congealed CM dang out the tip of my dong. TLDR. Congealed CM dam blocks wall of urine. I was about 8 or 9 years old, in a Taekwondo competition. Not really a competition per se, more like a recital where some big hotshot from Singapore was coming to observe us. Anyways, this man was really intimidating and didn't like to be interrupted when he was speaking. The day goes by fine until he's giving his closing remarks before we can leave. All the other students, all ages and races, and I are lined up standing in different rows, and luckily I'm in the last row because suddenly I had to pee bad and hard. I was too shy to interrupt him in front of everyone, and it would have been disrespectful to just walk out, so I decided to wait it out. I held it in as best I could, trying everything in the rule book. I take deep breaths, I don't think about running faucets or waterfalls. I cross my legs and squish my Crown Royal bag. Then I just couldn't hold it anymore. I peed. It didn't stop and soon a puddle was forming around me, and I went into panic mode. I knew I was going to be found out, and I was, as stealthily as possible, wiping away the liquid onto the absorbent mat as best I could with my feet. The urine just kept on flowing through and eventually the puddle grew enough to touch another person's foot. I repeat, another person's foot. I accepted the fact that my life would be over, but strangely enough the person didn't react to it, as everyone giving their full attention to the visitor. Not only was I surrounded by my classmates, but there was also a spectator section near the entrance that was filled with people including my dad. After I finished I acted like nothing happened, and just tried my best to not draw attention to myself. At that time I probably would have rather been naked in front of everyone. When the visitor finished his speech, I power walked with my best poker face out of that building, past my dad, and straight to our car outside. To this day I still have no freaking clue how I got out of that ordeal. TLDR. Peed at Taekwondo conference. It touched someone's foot. Came out innocent. I was in church with my dad when I was, say, 7ish and I didn't feel well. My dad liked to sit up close to the pulpit, so we were in the second row. My mouth started watering and I knew that meant I was about to vomit. I tried to make it out, but I wasn't fast enough and I vomited in front of the entire church. I have no idea who cleaned it up because my dad and I left immediately. I did this once at a church, made it to the bathroom, but not to the toilet, so I heaved a bunch of pink vomit all over the floor. I felt really bad because when I left, my mom asked me if I flushed and I said yes. After a night of partying, teenage me and my friends are walking back home as the sun comes up when I suddenly feel the intense urge to puke. I open up and just a little vomit comes out, followed by an entire wiener from a hot dog I had eaten a few hours earlier. The wiener had 3 breaks in it but was still 100% intact, held together by its skin. Apparently it didn't occur to me at the time that chewing a wiener is usually the best thing to do. I don't know what hurt more, the pain from passing a wiener upwards through my throat covered in searing vomit, or the taunts from my buddies about deep throating a hot dog. One friend snapped a pic of just the wiener with a disposable camera. None of us had seen it until a few years ago when the photo made an appearance at our friend's wedding when his best man was giving a speech. Although we didn't know him, he reached out to us for some funny stories and pictures to share about our friend growing up. Our friend just shared the pic without a story. As soon as we saw this awesome pic projected on the wall, we were all in tears. I had to get up and provide an impromptu explanation for the benefit of all the guests. It wasn't too big of a deal and nobody noticed, but it was my senior year of high school and I stood up to leave my psych class and I was wearing a skirt that day. There was a wet spot on the seat, not on my period, wasn't sweating, not particularly frisky, nothing, just a wet spot where my crotch had been. I went to the bathroom and the crotch of my undies was soaked through. Something in that class must have made me incredibly subconsciously frisky. Yup. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.